The royal seat quivered under Queen Zenora as another tremor rolled through Dranik City's palace, shedding grit from the fractured vaults onto her still lustrous black hair. Advisors, guards, even the travel-scarred merchants froze, waiting for one of her famous storms. Instead, the middle-aged queen exhaled, as if the eruption beyond the walls were a trifling draft under a door. Maid slid across the cold stone in soft slippers, whisking dust from her shoulders with nervous, shaking hands. Zenora didn't flinch. She kept her gaze on the new fracture scrawled across the ceiling, as if it were beneath the dignity of notice. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, threaded with a bitter music. "At least young Kellen is back on Earth," she said. "He doesn't have to bear this planet's curse any longer." Silence hardened over the hall. A stout Lavarian merchant, a typical deep sapphire, all broad palms and careful courtesies, nearly dropped his sample case of imported grain. The wall guards shifted just enough to set their ceremonial plates chiming, their pointed ears angled back, the species tell that discomfort had entered the room. Councillor Zohic, usually a healthy blue, had gone ashy, the worra pleats around his red eyes deepened as he computed consequences. The old man moved with surprising nimbleness, gold chains of office clinking against his chest as he bowed close enough for her to catch the scent of the cough herbs he chewed, a habit made common as the air grew harsher by the year. "Your Majesty," he murmured under the distant growl of another quake, it may be unwise to say Kellen's name aloud. "Perhaps we could discuss northern grain shipments instead." The merchants had travelled far, and his red eyes flicked toward the back, where three figures stood apart beneath the silver sigil of her sister's house. "Princess Thara's envoys are present. Certain family matters, especially concerning your adopted son, may be misread." Zenora studied his face. Even now he could barely shape the boy's name. 15 years, and they still treated Kellen like a stain that wouldn't wash out. Something cold and home turned in her chest. She laughed, too loud, on purpose, let it ring off cracked stone. Rising a little, she made sure every corner of the chamber would carry her words. "My dear sister has nothing to fear." Merchants flinched as if the blade were meant for them. "I will not saddle my adopted son with a kingdom of quakes and ash and air that poisons our lungs a little more each day." She stood fully. Age hadn't shortened her, command lived in her posture. "Do tell my sister, since you all report to her anyway." She faced the three envoys, their blue faces froze at the public call-out. "Her precious bloodline will not be tainted by a human succession. Her children can inherit this dying rock, and with it every collapsed mine, every black river, every citizen who chokes to death on volcanic dust. Let that be their glory." The room became a still life of avert your eyes. She knew what they saw when they dared to look, the barren queen who'd failed the first duty, the fool who rescued a human infant from a shattered escape pod and, unthinkably, kept him. She remembered the months of hearings with Earth's courts, how they whispered while she submitted to foreign evaluations and home inspections, all broadcast across the spiral of networks, the sovereign of Lavaria pleading with human judges to raise an orphan. Her sister had named it their planet's greatest humiliation. Perhaps it was. None of them had seen Kellen's eyes when she'd dragged open that pod, terrified, wordless to her, and clinging to her fingers as if they were the last rope in the universe. "You think me weak," she said into the hush. She let her eyes move, merchants studying the floor, guards staring over her head, her sister's spies memorizing every syllable. The infertile queen who played mother to an alien child while Thara built power and polished heirs. She stepped down from the dais, boots clicking over stone once white and forever smudged grey by ash. "You whisper that I taught him our tongue first. That I attended his human school rites while our own traditions frayed. That I spent the treasury on Earth tutors and Earth food when he failed to thrive." A young guard near the doors, skin still and scarred, flinched as she passed. Zenora almost smiled. "You're fools if you think I care about succession." Her voice rose, shaking dust from the wounded ceiling. "Look. The magma rivers under our feet swell. Last month the southern district of Dranik vanished into a smoking crack. Our birth rate has fallen to nearly nothing because our bodies already know, this world is ending." Her robes flared as she turned. "I'm grateful, do you hear me? Grateful that my son belongs to a powerful species that doesn't have to live on this badly terraformed scrap the Federation tossed us. One child saved. One child loved as if he were my blood. He will survive what's coming. The admission thickened the air. Some merchants traded glances, expressions shifted, pity, shock, maybe a shard of understanding. There will be no more audiences today, she said. All of you, dismissed. The stampede was barely civilized. A container shattered, preserved rations slid across marble, and no one stopped to help. Guards filed out in tidy rows that failed to mask their relief. Thara's envoys nearly ran, clenching their recorders like trophies. In minutes only Zohic and 4 young maids remained. The advisor stood as if carved, unreadable. The maids huddled by the wall, wavering between approach and retreat. Zenora walked to the eastern window, off-world glass, ruinously expensive, framing what was left of Dranic City. Once, pink crystal spires and gardens of alien bloom. Now, ruins and relief camps. Another tower of black smoke uncoiled on the horizon, another factory swallowed, another few hundred livelihoods gone. The volcanoes were eating the future. Your Majesty, said Hyra, the boldest maid, offering a breathing mask with both hands. Toxicity is high today. Please? Zenora didn't turn. Zohic try next, voice carefully even. Your health, Majesty. Volcanic gases are up 30% this cycle. The medical board recommends. The medical board recommends everything, she cut in. 40 years of fertility treatments. Naming my sister's brood as heirs. Sending Kellen back to Earth at 10, at 15, at 18. She pressed her palm to the cool pain. I am tired of recommendations. What was the point of preserving a body that breathed poison? The sting in her eyes matched the honest burn in her chest, so much closer to the old purpose than any pill. She opened her mouth to refuse the mask again. The doors slammed open hard enough to crack stone. A wave of palace guards poured in, faces flushed purple, ears pinned in alarm. Your Majesty! Captain Dex, the mining wars written in scars across his features, was breathless. Multiple human ships have entered atmosphere without clearance. They are ignoring all hails. Zenora spun from the window, and flying to her throat. She met Zohic's eyes, his face drained, his mind already racing her own, diplomacy. Invasion? Earth had never moved against them, but then Earth had never sent ships unannounced either. Is this an attack? She asked, keeping her voice level while her heartbeat stuttered. We don't think so. Dex frowned, confusion overtaking fear. They are not in attack formation, and the only message we received said, he faltered, as if the words refused to fit reality. It said Kellen is coming home. Her legs went soft, she gripped a chair back to stay upright. Kellen, returning. Why? And with how many ships? 15 at last count, Dex said to Zohic's sparked question. More appearing on long-range scopes. Time splintered, too fast, too slow. Zenora was suddenly running the palace corridors, robes hitched in both fists, dignity abandoned. Zohic wheezed beside her. The maids kept pace, Hyra pleading for proper royal bearing, and being ignored. They hurtled down the grand stair under the painted scowls of dead monarchs, through the hall of treaties where she'd signed Kellen's adoption, past the chamber of sorrows where she'd mourned each miscarriage, skirting the garden he'd loved as a boy, now withered to grey by air that burned. They burst into the spaceport, a vast shell from better days, lately a way station for aid ships and evac runs, and today impossibly alive. On the observation platform she stood, breath ragged, a sleek silver hulls dropped through the orange-tinged sky, Earth's blue-green insignia glinting. Their skins were unmarred by the sandblasting ash that scarred every Lavarian vessel. They landed with unbothered precision through wind shears that usually made pilots curse gods and geology. 5 ships. 10. 15. 20. Pads filled that hadn't seen this many legs in decades. The lead hatch irised open. She strangled the railing, knuckles paling to dusky blue. And then Kellen stepped into the light. For the briefest instant, Zenora's mind refused to bridge the gap between the memory of a frightened boy clinging to her hand and a man striding down the ramp. He was taller now, taller even than most Lavarians, his human bones stretched with broad shoulders and honed muscle. The clothes he wore were of earth's cut, but dyed in royal indigo and deep violet, shades that spoke to Lavarian heritage rather than concealed it. His pale skin gleamed against the colors, and yet his presence carried a weight that outshone appearances. He moved with steady confidence, the kind of stride born from knowing exactly where one belonged. Without hesitation, without calculation, Zenora descended the platform. Protocol, reputation, pride, she let them all collapse like the crumbling arches of Dranic City behind her. Her ceremonial robes, heavy with crystal embroidery, tangled around her legs as she surged forward. When she reached him, she clasped him tightly to her chest, and to her astonishment she had to tilt her chin upward now. The boy who once fit in her arms had grown into someone she could barely contain. "Unhome, mother," he said. The voice was deeper, seasoned by years and distance, but it still carried that soft inflection, that human twist to their tongue. He smiled, crooked as ever, the left corner higher than the right, and something in her chest ached with relief. Her first word stumbled out sharper than she meant. "Why return to this wasteland? You were free. You were safe." Kellen didn't flinch. He caught her hands in his, pale fingers roughened by work. "Because I'd found a way to save you. To save everyone." Zenora searched his face for the lies she'd grown accustomed to from courtiers. Instead she found only steady conviction. "You should be at the universities. Your letters." "I lied," he admitted without shame. "I sat through enough classes to keep up appearances, but most of the time I was elsewhere, meeting people, building ties, finding my blood kin. Ever since you showed me the projections of Lavaria's decline, I've been planning. Preparing." Her voice was almost too faint to hear. "Kellen, what have you done?" He looked over his shoulder. "Uncle John can explain it better." From the flagship emerged a man she hadn't seen since those grueling tribunal days on Earth. Time had carved lines into his face, but his posture was unchanged, solid, unyielding. She remembered him standing in the courtroom, jaw set with fury as the judges granted her custody. John, brother to the boy's lost mother, and once her bitter opponent. Queen Zenora. He gave the smallest of bows, a diplomat's gesture balanced precisely between duty and resentment. "We carried grudges for years. My family believed you had stolen him from us, turned him against his blood. But he," John's face softened in a way she had never seen, "he convinced us otherwise. He made us see who you were." Kellen flushed, looking down. "I told them about you, about what you did. How you fought to keep me, how you endured their scrutiny, how you loved me when you had every reason not to. The campaign I started on Earth, saved the people who saved me, it spread across the systems. Billions saw it. They gave. They marched. They remembered." John raised a small device and holographic images bloomed in the smoky air, Kellen on vast stages before oceans of human faces, Kellen in formal halls, speaking with leaders of the Earth Council, the Martian Assembly, even the outer colonies' fractious delegates. Protests in distant capitals where strangers held banners painted with Lavarian sigils and slogans of solidarity. He gathered allies, resources, and funds, John said, voice heavy with reluctant admiration. 10 billion credits. Enough to buy this. Zenora's knees trembled again. "But an entire world. Better than the one you're losing," Kellen said with urgency. He pointed to the horizon. "Over there, the ground is rich with metals even your miners could not exhaust. The seas are alive, not poisoned. The air is ours to breathe. The climate is almost identical to home before it soured, the gravity close enough to spare our bones. It's safe. We can begin resettlement at once." His hand tugged hers the way it had when he was small, eager to show her a hidden garden or a secret discovery. His eyes glimmered with the same reckless hope. "And then, of course," Zohik's voice cracked like a whip. "Enough." The old counselor, who had held his tongue until now, shuffled forward with surprising fire. His crimson eyes blazed. Do you think you can purchase a planet with human coins and play savior to our race? You are not Lavarian. You never were. You never shall be. The word struck like a blade. Kellen's shoulders sagged, he bowed his head. You're right, advisor. I'm not truly of your blood. I only wanted to help. I couldn't bear to live free while you all suffocated. Zenora stood rooted, torn between centuries of tradition and the vision unfolding around her, a valley of twilight skies and silver-barked forests, a future for her people carved by the child she had once cradled. The choice before her was a precipice. She stepped forward. You are wrong, Zohic, she said quietly, each word sharp as obsidian. Zohic's lips parted, scandal flickering across his weathered face. Your Majesty, he began, but his protest faltered as Zenora pressed on. If this boy, my son, has won us a new dawn, then our people will accept him. Bloodlines crumble when children choke on ash. Do you truly believe any mother here would refuse clean air for her child because salvation came through human hands? The councillor's silence was answer enough. Zenora lifted her gaze toward Kellen, who stood waiting with the posture of one who had carried burdens far heavier than his years. She saw the scar cutting through his brow, the set of his jaw, and the brown eyes that had always marked him as different. Yet in that difference she now read an inheritance stronger than any crystal crown, a determination forged in exile. She cupped his face, ignoring the stares of every soldier and servant. I never imagined you would be king, Kellen. Not because I doubted your worth, on the contrary, you would lead better than most who claim the right. I only wished to shield you from this weight. To give you the chance at a life not chained to a dying throne. Her lips brushed his forehead as they once had when he was small. But if you truly choose this path, then I will make it so. You shall be king of this world we have been gifted. A tremor passed through him, not of fear but of laughter. That's fine with me, mother. As long as my queen is Vizara. The name cut through the assembly like a blade through silk. Courtiers gasped, ears twitching backward. Even the youngest maid stifled a squeak. Vizara, the daughter of Thara, the rival who had despised Zenora's adoption from the first day. Kellen, oblivious to the scandal, shrugged. We're not truly cousins. We spoke for years over the networks. We know each other better than anyone here wants to admit. I don't see the problem. The silence stretched taut, trembling like the earth beneath their feet. Then Zenora let out a sound that was neither scorn nor surprise, but something warmer. Zenora's laugh was low, threaded with something almost mischievous. She glanced sideways at Zohic, whose frown deepened as if the universe itself had conspired against his sense of order. You think this was only his doing? She asked. The councillor blinked. What are you implying? My dear advisor, she said, sweeping a hand toward the valley below where the twin moons painted the horizon with violet light, do you not see? Kellen and Vizara have been weaving this future together for years. Letters, secret calls, subtle whispers carried across the stars. She knew every plan her mother made. And she chose to act, for him, for us. What you see is not theft, but alliance. Zohic's sharp composure cracked. He stared at the couple who now walked among the citizens, their hands intertwined. Kellen hoisted a laughing child onto his shoulders while Vizara steadied him with practiced ease. Their mingled colors, pale human skin and rich Lavarian blue, gleamed like a banner brighter than any crest. Below, musicians shifted from solemn hymns to a jubilant human rhythm. The courtyard erupted as Lavarian elders, merchants, and children all tried to mimic the strange steps Kellen demonstrated, a swaying, sliding dance that looked absurd yet somehow perfect. Laughter rose into the night air, weaving with the music. Vizara corrected his movements with a playful tug, her voice carrying over the crowd's cheers. They saved one of ours, so we saved all of theirs, Zohic murmured, the words heavy but no longer bitter. That is what the human broadcasts declared. A slogan, simple, yet it bound two peoples together. He paused, almost reverent. I never thought to see such a thing. And yet, here it is. Warmth spread through Zenora's chest, a feeling she had not known since before the skies turned poisonous. She remembered the small boy in the shattered escape pod, his tiny hand gripping hers with desperate trust. She recalled the restless youth who struggled to reconcile his dual heritage, yet never let go of who he was. And now she looked at the man who had returned with fleets and a dream vast enough to rewrite their fate. Sometimes, she whispered, the simplest promise is the one that saves everything. As if sensing her thought, Kellen raised his head from below. Across the jubilant crowd, his crooked smile caught her like sunlight through clouds. He lifted his hand in greeting. She raised hers in answer, queen to king, brother to son, the old world bidding welcome to the new. The celebration roared on, filling the night with voices in two languages, words stumbling but spirit soaring. Shadows of two moons crossed the palace walls, stretching long over the purple hills. And there, in the heart of the crowd, a human king and a Lavarian queen moved together in joyous rhythm, writing the first lines of a story no one had believed possible, born from a single, defiant act of love, carrying a people into tomorrow.